everybody, welcome to Wild Boy Movies, the place to talk movies, and today we're going to be reviewing Avatar Fire and Ash, the third installment of James Cameron's hit franchise. Right now I'm going to have some information up on screen for you to read, like director, runtime, and PAA rating. All of that will be up on screen for you to read right now. But be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment down below your thoughts on Avatar Fire and Ash. But without further ado, let's get right into the pros. Alright, so I'm gonna do things differently and start off with the biggest pro that I have with Avatar Fire and Ash, because it is essentially the biggest pro that I have with all three of these movies, and that is the VFX and CGI, because they are on a whole nother level here. Now, like I mentioned, I really like the VFX for the first two movies. I thought they were very much well done, and it made the world of Pandora look amazing, and here it's no different because there are a lot of great looking sequences in this movie, and the CGI is just so well done. I did watch this movie in IMAX 3D, just like what I did with Avatar The Way of Water's re-release, and I really thought that the IMAX 3D only enhanced those CGI moments in the movie. Especially in an era where CGI can kind of be a little bit iffy at times, but that just doesn't seem to apply with the Avatar movies, because there are a lot of amazing CGI and VFX sequences in this movie, like especially towards the final battle and the ending of the movie, where it's like in this little area of the Metkayina tribe. Like, that area looked amazing, and a lot of it was because of the action sequences, which is another pro that I have. The action in here is also very good, and definitely probably some of the best that we've seen of the franchise. Like, there's like a battle that happens in like this base for the ODA, and I really like that action sequence, and again, that final battle was just awesome to see at the same time. And there are some other action sequences throughout the movie that are so well done that I just really like what we saw in terms of the action in the Avatar Fire and Ash movie. I also really like the addition of some lore for the Avatar franchise in the world of Pandora. One that I'm not going to mention because it is a spoiler, but one that I am going to mention since they literally showed off in the trailers, and one that I found to be very intriguing was the fact that Spider, Jack Champion's character, is able to breathe the Pandorian air and still be alive. Now, that was some very fascinating things that I really liked about Avatar Fire and Ash, and I was kind of like disappointed that they kind of showed that off in the trailers, because I felt like that was something that would have been so much more impactful if I saw that for the first time on the big screen. But there are a lot of scenes in this movie, like majority of this movie, Jack Champion's character Spider does not have that oxygen mask on, and yeah, it was kind of hard for them to kind of cover that up and hide that surprise, so they had to show in the trailer. But regardless, I really like the addition of the fact that Spider can now breathe the Pandorian air. And I think this addition of Spider being able to breathe the air on Pandora is going to have some major implications for the remainder of this franchise and 4 and 5. That is, even if we get 4 and 5, because James Cameron has said before that if Avatar Fire and Ash doesn't make that much money in flops, then the franchise will end with the third movie. And in speaking of that, if this is the end of the Avatar franchise and we don't get 4 and 5, I think this movie ends pretty well to where, yeah, this definitely could feel like a satisfying ending to the Avatar franchise, and I felt like that a lot of loose ends were tied up, though there were like maybe 1 or 2 that were left open that could be explored in further sequels. But I think for the most part, they end off the movie so well that if this is indeed the end of the Avatar franchise, they ended off pretty well, and I would be pretty satisfied with how they would end off the franchise. But I'm thinking that, yeah, we are most likely going to get that 4th and 5th movie. So, but the last pro that I'm going to mention with Avatar Fire and Ash is the introduction of the 2 new tribes that we get to meet in this movie, the Wind Traders and the Mon Quang. Starting off with the Wind Traders, I felt like they had a very interesting, like, ways of doing things. They're like nomadic traders. Like they're not on one side of the war that's on Pandora. They're just there to like, hey, we want to trade with other Na'vi. Like, I found that to be very interesting, and I did like the character of Paylak, but I was kind of hoping that we would get a little bit more of the Wind Traders. Hopefully they have more screen time in the next two movies, but the new tribe that I really want to go ahead and praise is the Mon Quang, which is essentially the fire tribe in this movie, because they were so fascinating to see how they were more different and more bad than compared to other tribes that we've seen before, like the Omaticaya and the Mekaina Na'vi. And I thought the Mon Quang were great villains in this movie, and that is mainly because of their leader, Varang, played by Una Chaplin. And I thought she did a great job with the portrayal of Varang. I thought she was a great villain for the Avatar franchise, and a great one that is not the RDA and Quaritch, since we already did that for the first two movies. And while they're still here as the villains for this movie, I liked how they went ahead and had a different villain in the form of Varang and the Mon Quang. And I also really liked how they went ahead and handled the relationship that Varang has with Quaritch, because we do see in the trailers that Varang and Quaritch do have like an alliance in this movie, to where the RDA and the Mon Quang team up to hunt down Jake Sully and his family. Like, I really like how they handled their relationship in this movie, and I really thought that Quaritch and Varang were great working together for like their own evil agendas. Like, I really like the character of Varang, and I'm hoping that if we get to 4 and 5 again, if they end up happening, I hope we do get to see more of Varang and maybe even more evil Na'vi in this world that we haven't even explored yet. And so yeah, I really ended up liking Avatar Fire and Ash. I thought it was another great entry for this Avatar franchise, and I thought it ended off this trilogy of Avatar movies very well. However, with that being said, this does happen to be my least favorite entry of the Avatar franchise, and I'll explain why in my cons. Alright, starting off, I gotta go ahead and mention the runtime for this movie, because this movie has a runtime of 195 minutes, 3 hours and 15 minutes to be exact, and this is a movie where I definitely felt that lengthy runtime, which is different from how I felt about Avatar The Way of Water, the previous entry in the series, to where with that movie, yeah, the movie does have that lengthy runtime of 192 minutes, but I was very much invested all throughout the movie and was definitely locked in all throughout that runtime. But here with Avatar Fire and Ash, I definitely felt like there were moments where, yeah, I could feel that 3-hour-long runtime. But my biggest con with Avatar Fire and Ash, which does seem to be the main complaint that people have with this movie, is that there are plot points in this movie that feel repetitive at times. Now, I'm not gonna dive too much into those plot points because that would lead into spoiler territory, and this is a spoiler-free review, but there are plot points that happen in this movie that feel repetitive, because these are plot points that have been done in the previous entries that we've seen. And I heard about this complaint when the reviews dropped just a few days before the movie, and I thought that, well, if the movie's just as good as I was hoping it was, then the repetitiveness of the movie could be like a little nitpick, but no, there's just so much repetitive elements of this movie that we've seen in the previous entries that it's hard for me not to label as a nitpick. This is just a con that I have with this movie, and it's something that I'm hoping that the next two movies don't do. Like, I'm hoping 4 and 5 do not do plot points that we've seen over and over again with this franchise. I mean, sure, you could still have the RDA going after the Sully family, like, that's sort of like a big thing with this franchise, but some of the other plot points that we've seen in the first two movies, and even in this third movie, I'm hoping that they kind of avoid from doing those plot points again, because that would kind of lead into 4 and 5, if they end up doing that, leading to be kind of disappointing entries of the franchise. But even with those cons, I still ended up really enjoying Fire and Ash. And although it is my least favorite entry of the Avatar franchise, I'm still very looking forward to see what James Cameron has in store for Avatar 4 in 2029 and Avatar 5 in 2031. And again, that is if Avatar 4 and 5 ends up happening. But still, this is still another great entry for this James Cameron sci-fi franchise. So for my scorecard, I'm gonna give Avatar Fire and Ash 4.5 stars, with the score out of 10 being 9.5 out of 10, with the percentage being 95%, with a grade of A, with my final verdict being least favorite of the trilogy, but still really good. But that was my review for Avatar Fire and Ash. I want to hear from you guys. What are your guys' opinions on this third Avatar movie? Go ahead and leave your thoughts down in the comment section. And while you're at it, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. And have a great day.